Hey everyone, Jared with J&J Off-Road. I'm going to cover a couple of the Superlift components that some of us are using instead of buying the whole Superlift kit. I don't think some people totally understand what the Superlift components do when you buy an entire Superlift. That's the best way to start if you're going to buy a lift, will be start with the Superlift base and then build off of that, depending on if you want to stay at 4-inch or if you want to go over and go up to 6-inch. You will definitely have to have a couple of these components I'm going to cover here. I've got mine tore apart, so I figured while I did, I'm going to show you some differences on the two main things that you're going to need in the front. They do have their own diff drop. I sell my diff drop. I'm going to show you kind of the difference in what theirs, I don't have a picture of theirs, but explain to you kind of what their diff drop does versus ours and why they're a little bit different. And so without any other thing, I'm going to go ahead and start here and kind of show you guys what's going on. Okay, to start off here, I'm going to show you the difference between a Superlift knuckle and a stock knuckle on our Jeeps, on our WKs or XKs, whichever, they're the same. I think a lot of people don't understand the true difference in what Superlift does when they put their lifts on the front end. They bring everything back to where your tie rods, your upper control arms, everything are back at stock geometries, even your CV axles with their diff drops. So I'm going to kind of show you how they accomplish that. I brought one of my other knuckles up from the outside shed, but it's the left versus the right, so you'll still be able to see what the difference in the heights are. Okay, here we have a stock steering knuckle off a WK XK versus the Superlift steering knuckle. Now the biggest differences are you're going to see how much taller the upper ball joint is. That's why you can get around running stock upper control arms with Superlift, because they raise theirs to where your ball joint angles are good on 4-inch, to where if you stay on a stock one, you're going to have to run JBA or RRO upper control arms to account for the difference in this height. This is how much, if you go 4 inches, so you're going to be putting your ball joints in that much of a bind. That's why they make the lifted upper control arms. Another big difference is your tie rod mounts. This is stock, this is a Superlift. This is how much they raise your mount. They're raising it up approximately 4 inches because you're lifting your Jeep 4 inches, so they raise your tie rod mount. So that's how they're keeping everything in stock geometry in the front end when they raise it 4 inches. So if you're staying with stock steering knuckles, you're fighting that. There are some options. Of course, I just mentioned the lifted upper control arms. The tie rod mounts, they have some manufacturers out there that make some that supposedly accommodate for that different angle. I'm not going to go into if I think they're good or if they're not good or if they work. I have no experience with them. So, but you can see whenever we go to a 6-inch lift, we start with this because this puts us back to ground zero as stock lift geometry. So then technically when we're going 6 inches, we then are raising 2 inches off of stock geometry. Then we put the JBA or RRO lifted control arms on top, which accommodates for the little bit of different angle off of stock. The tie rods, we just tend to keep them the same when we go to 6 inches. So that's what I wanted to cover on the steering knuckles. Now, one other thing they do, they offer this cross member. It runs, I've got skid plates on here, it's kind of hard to see. But your original lower control arm mount sets up here. So you're dropping it down. I used to have the measurements. I think it's just under 4 inches, because you can see where the bolt used to be, where it comes down now. So you're dropping your lower control arm, which brings the geometry of it back to more normal. And all they do on the back is this upper control, or lower control arm, sorry, used to be mounted on the top here. So it would be about parallel where this is. So all you do on this one is you flip your mount, put it underneath, and that brings that to a parallel angle. Now one reason they do that, it helps keep your geometry correct, but their diff drop, theirs actually lowers the front diff 2 3/8 of an inch to where ours go 1 3/4 inches. So when they go 2 3/8, now you gotta remember mine's all on lift hanging here, so my angles are really extreme at this point. When they go 2 3/8 inch drop, when this is on the ground, without moving this down, your axle will be hitting your lower control arm. So they drop all this down, which gives you clearance to get your CV axles and articulation and not rub your lower control arms. So that's the main components on those that I wanted to cover. That's why when we go 6-inch, we need these two main components on the front. So a lot of us have just been buying them extra. There's not really any way around going to 6-inch without these two components from Superlift. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and I'll try to come up with some others for you. You guys showed a lot of interest in them, okay? Thanks.